Hi, I'm Alexandra Sleator, Career Accelerator. And well, ladies and gentlemen, we are into the home stretch, just a few weeks to Christmas and the year end. And what a year it's been, 2011. At the firms that I worked at, we would typically be in full swing with the annual performance appraisal process. And so I thought that for the last 3 videos for this year, I would focus on techniques for both giving and receiving feedback. So in this video, I will share with you very rapidly an 8-step process to ensure that you give really constructive feedback. And it's not just for managers, it's also for all of us that are going to find ourselves on the receiving end of feedback. Because if you know how constructive feedback works and you find yourself in fact receiving poorly structured feedback, knowing how to steer the conversation back to something more positive, more helpful, can make a world of difference. And if you can't steer the dialogue, at least you will be able to understand better what is happening and therefore to have a more positive and constructive attitude even to poorly structured feedback. In the second video on feedback, I will share with you the top 3 mistakes that managers make when giving feedback. And in the last video, I will switch a little bit the table and put the emphasis on the recipients of feedback and share with you my concept of ethical bragging, as I call it. I have noticed that several people are uncomfortable about talking about their accomplishment. They are concerned about coming across as arrogant, and so they underplay their achievements and don't do themselves justice. On the other hand, some people who want to be forceful about their contribution just overdo it a little bit. So with ethical bragging, you'll find a nice balance that does justice to your achievements and allow you to come across as not arrogant and overbearing. So without further ado, let's kick off with the 8-step process. It may sound a lot, but in fact it's just to ensure that we have a comprehensive approach to something so crucial as giving feedback. And actually the 8 steps are summarized in an acronym called feedback. So F to start with, that means what happens first, and it's about scene setting. You don't want to go into a feedback session without some degree of preparation. You want to meet in the right place and at the right time. And importantly, you want to start off on a positive note, even if the rest of the feedback or the majority of the feedback is going to be negative. And I will come back to how people mishandle giving positive feedback. Then the first E is for explain. We all know that we're supposed to give feedback that is specific, and yet too often it's vague. And so that's another mistake that I will come back about how to really give specific feedback. The third step, which is the second E, is for enunciate, and that has to do with how you deliver your feedback. For example, be wary of speaking too fast, of assuming that the recipient of the feedback is going to automatically know what you're talking about. It's also about using I statements, and I will give you a little bit more detail in the next video about what that means. Then the fourth step, D, is for demonstrate, and that's when you comment on the implications of the performance for the recipient. If it's positive feedback, this is a nice way to say thank you and to recognize the benefits that this person's achievement has resulted in for the company. In contrast, if the feedback is negative, this is to draw again the implications of the poor performance on the strategy of the firm, its objectives, and its own performance. It's also to tie it with the implications that poor performance can have on the career prospects for that person. So it's about bringing in the big picture. And in so doing, you open up the frame of the feedback. It's no longer this one-on-one conversation. It takes place in a bigger context where you, as the feedback provider, show that you care about both your colleague to whom you're giving the feedback and the firm for which you are both working. Then It's B, and B is for back, which is that a feedback, a conversation is indeed a dialogue. So there is a moment where you need to invite the person into the conversation, to even allow them to disagree with what you've said, and to look at together the evidence for and against the feedback. It's very important that you have a dialogue. Sometimes it's not always possible to have it there and then. If the feedback has surprised the recipient, you may need to reconvene, but make sure you have this dialogue. A is for alliteration. Alliteration is a bit of a complex word which refers to all sorts of strategies that you can use if your feedback is not being received. I think a lot of us have been in situations where we deliver feedback and then we are looking at a wall. The recipient is not communicating to us, even though we are inviting them to respond. They are in fact staying silent. And that's usually because they're in denial or in shock. And so in order to overcome that barrier, it may be useful for you to repeat your feedback in different ways, such as paraphrasing yourself. So alliteration covers this range of tactics which allow you to feed again. And clearly one of the techniques you don't want to use is to raise your voice to make more of an impression. So it's about the do's and don'ts of repeating yourself. Then it's C, the seventh step, for comfort. Because clearly coming from a place of caring, both about the firm's performance but also about your colleagues' contribution, you want to offer support. And again there, it's important to do it in a way that's going to elicit commitment from the recipient to take action. And I will develop that in another video, because comfort is often something we want to do. We do it from the heart, and yet we do it ineffectively. And that is sad, because it means that the performance doesn't improve and in fact typically deteriorates. So that's a crucial stage at the comfort step. And finally, K is for kinesics. Kinesics, another a bit sophisticated word, which refers to body language and things like facial expressions or gestures. And it is important that while you're having a feedback conversation, you watch your body language. A lot of us will be nervous when we have to give feedback, especially when we know that the feedback is not all positive. And so it's very important that we watch ourselves, that we keep, for example, an open body language so that we suggest dialogue and inclusion, that we maintain eye contact in order to convey credibility, and that we own our own opinions. So again, at Kinesics, it's a whole range of strategies and techniques that you need to bear in mind in order to convey, both through your body, in addition to your choice of words, which is the enunciate step, and of course the general content of what you're sharing, one consistent impression to the feedback recipient. So there you have it, 8 steps to really constructive feedback. I know I haven't gone a lot into details, and if you'd like to exchange on any one of these various aspects, you know where to find me, and my email address is appearing on the screen. I'd be happy to tell you more and teach you more in detail that feedback process, which I have used time and time again very effectively. So I know that you can too. I will look forward to seeing you very soon for a second video looking at the top 3 mistakes that managers make, sadly, when giving feedback. And then in the third video, we'll look at ethical bragging, how to convey your accomplishments without arrogance. Until then, take good care, thank you for watching, and see you soon. Bye-bye.